Number 1.
The Pharaohs of ancient Egypt. And this isn't one family, it's the longest running monarchy in human history. Egypt was ruled by pharaohs for roughly 3,000 years, from around 3100 BC all the way to 30 BC. To put that in perspective, that's longer than the gap between the fall of Rome and today.
The pharaoh wasn't seen as a man who happened to be king. He was believed to be a living god, the bridge between the people and the heavens. When he died, they built mountains of stone to launch him into the afterlife. We still stare at those mountains today. We call them pyramids.
But here's the part that most people miss. By the end, Egypt wasn't even ruled by Egyptians. The final dynasty, the Ptolemaic dynasty, were Macedonian Greek, descended from one of Alexander the Great's generals. They ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years and refused to even learn the language.
All except the last one, Cleopatra VII. She learned Egyptian, presented herself as a goddess reborn, and gambled the entire kingdom on 2 Roman men. When that gamble failed, she died, and 3,000 years of pharaohs died with her. Egypt became a Roman province.
Which brings us to dynasty number 2, the empire that came before even the Greeks, the Achaemenid Empire of Persia. Before Rome, before Greece was anything to fear, one family built the first true world empire. It started with one man, Cyrus the Great, around 550 BC. And Cyrus did something almost no conqueror before him had done. He didn't burn the cultures he conquered. He let them keep their gods, their languages, and their customs.
It's written on an artifact called the Cyrus Cylinder, one of the first declarations of religious tolerance in history. That choice made him the most powerful man on earth, ruling from Egypt to the edge of India.
His successors, Darius and Xerxes, pushed even further. Roads that ran for thousands of miles, a postal system, a single empire across 3 continents. This was a blueprint. Everyone who came after, Rome included, was copying Persia.
And then they ran into a 20-something Macedonian named Alexander, who tore the whole thing down in a few short years. The first world empire fell to a kid. Remember that. It happens again on this list.
Dynasty number 3, the Caesars of Rome. Now, technically Rome started as a republic that hated kings. They'd thrown out their last king and sworn never to have another.
So when one man finally took total power, he was clever about it. Augustus never called himself king. He called himself first citizen, but he made sure his adopted family inherited everything. The result was Julio Claudians, the first imperial dynasty of Rome.
And that family gave us some of the most infamous rulers in history. Tiberius, Caligula, who, according to later Roman writers, once planned to make his favorite horse a consul, and Nero, who is rumored to have watched Rome burn.
But the name itself outlived them all. Centuries later, the Russians would call their ruler Tsar. The Germans would call theirs the Kaiser. Both words were just Caesar, echoing down 2,000 years. One family name became the word for the supreme ruler across half the planet. Quick, before we go any further, if you're enjoying this, please hit the like button. It really helps this channel, and it tells us you want the deep dives on every single one of these families, which we're making. Number 4, the Tang Dynasty of China. Because while Europe was stumbling through the so-called Dark Ages, China was having a golden one.
The Tang ruled for nearly 300 years, from 618 to 907. Under them, the Chinese capital was arguably the largest, richest, most sophisticated city on earth. Poetry, paper money, printing, centuries before Europe caught up.
But the real Chinese innovation wasn't a thing. It was an idea, the mandate of heaven, the belief that heaven itself chose the ruling family and could take that blessing away. Floods, famines, defeats, that was heaven revoking the mandate. It was permission baked right into the system to overthrow a failing dynasty.
Which is exactly why China didn't have one royal family. It had a revolving door of them. Tang, Shuang, Yuan, Ming, Qing, each one rising on the claim that the last one had lost heaven's favor.
And one of those replacements is dynasty number 5. And it built the largest land empire the world has ever seen. The Mongol Empire, the line of Genghis Khan.
In 1206, a man who'd been born into nothing united the Mongol tribes and took the title Genghis Khan. Within a single lifetime, his family controlled an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Europe.
His grandson split it into pieces and ruled them all. One grandson, Kublai Khan, conquered China outright and founded a dynasty there. Others ruled Persia, Central Asia, and the Russian steppe for generations.
At its height, the Mongol Empire was the largest connected land empire in all of history. No family before or since has ever directly controlled that much of the planet at once.
But an empire built that fast, by one family, on a conquest alone? The sons fought the sons. It fractured almost as fast as it formed. Dynasty number 6.
The Ottoman Empire. And this one lasted over 600 years from around 1299 all the way to 1922. Their defining moment came in 1453, the fall of Constantinople. Mehmed the Conqueror, just 21 years old, took the city that had stood for 1,000 years as the heart of the Christian East and the last capital of the Byzantine Empire. With that, the last shadow of the Roman Empire finally fell.
Under Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottomans ruled 3 continents and dazzled the world with their wealth and architecture. They also did something truly chilling to protect the throne.
When a new sultan took power, the law actually allowed him to have his own brothers killed, to wipe out every possible rival.
That's crazy.
They called it the law of fratricide, and Mehmed the Conqueror put it into writing. The logic was cold but simple. A dead brother can't start a civil war. The family secured the throne by murdering their family. Dynasty
number 7.
The House of Habsburg. If you've ever wondered which single family ran more of Europe than anyone else, this is your answer. At their peak, the Habsburgs ruled Austria, Spain, the Netherlands, much of Italy, and through Spain, a global empire in the Americas.
Charles V held so many crowns at once that it was said the sun never set on his realm. He governed an empire so vast he reportedly couldn't speak all the languages of his own subjects.
So how long do you keep that much power inside one family? The Habsburg answer was, you don't let it leave. Instead of marrying rivals, they married each other. Cousins married cousins, uncle married nieces for generations.
And biology sent the bill. The family developed a jaw so pronounced it literally is called the Habsburg jaw. The last Spanish Habsburg king, Charles II, was so weakened by generations of inbreeding that he couldn't produce an heir at all.
So the very strategy meant to protect the bloodline is what ended it. When Charles II died in 1700, the Spanish line of the most powerful family in Europe simply stopped. No child. The crown passed to the grandson of Louis XIV.
Dynasty number 8. The House of Tudor. My favorite. Only 5 monarchs. Only 118 years. From 1485 to 1603. And yet this might be the most famous royal family in the world.
It began on a battlefield. Henry Tudor killed the last king of the old dynasty and picked the crown up off the ground. His son became the king everyone remembers, King Henry VIII, the one with 6 wives.
And Henry didn't just collect wives. To divorce the first one, he broke England away from the Catholic Church entirely and made himself the head of a brand new one. He changed the religion of a nation because he wanted a son.
The cruel irony? The child who made the Tudors immortal wasn't the son he killed for. It was a daughter he'd once dismissed. Elizabeth I never married, ruled for 44 years, defeated the most powerful navy on earth, the Spanish Armada, and gave her name to a golden age.
And then, because she never married and never had a child, she became the last Tudor. The most famous dynasty in history lasted just 3 generations.
And here's the twist. The crown didn't pass to another Tudor. There were none left. It went to James, the King of Scotland, the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, the cousin Elizabeth had executed years before.
So ironic. Think about that. The woman Elizabeth sent to the executioner's block, it was her son who inherited the English throne.
Dynasty number 9. The Mughal Empire of India, founded in 1526 by Babur, a descendant of both Genghis Khan and the conqueror of Timur. Under the emperors like Akbar the Great, the Mongols ruled most of the Indian subcontinent and presided over one of the wealthiest empires on the planet. Akbar, remarkably for his era, tried to bring Hindus and Muslims together under one tolerant rule.
And they left behind the most beautiful monument any grieving husband has ever built. When the Emperor Shah Jahan lost his beloved wife, he ordered a tomb of white marble so perfect it took over 20 years to complete. The Taj Mahal, a dynasty's grief, turned to stone.
But Shah Jahan's own son, Aurangzeb, seized the throne and imprisoned his father in the fort of Arga, close enough to see that very tomb from his window. The family turning on family again. The empire never fully recovered and slowly fell apart under foreign pressure.
Dynasty number 10, the House of Bourbon of France. And no monarch ever embodied absolute power more completely than this family's most famous son.
Louis XIV, the Sun King. He reigned for 72 years, from 1643 to 1715, the longest reign of any monarch in European history. He's the one who supposedly declared, "I am the state." Whether he said those exact words or not, he lived them.
He built the Palace of Versailles not just as a home, but as a trap. He turned his most dangerous nobles into pampered house guests, so obsessed with court etiquette and his attention that they had no time left to plot against him. He controlled them by flattering them to death.
But the gold ran out. A few generations later, his descendant, Louis XVI, inherited a bankrupt, starving country and people who'd had enough. In 1793, the French Revolution sent the King of France to the guillotine. The most absolute monarchy in Europe ended in the king's own subjects executing him in public.
Dynasty number 11, and it's the one whose collapse still feels very modern because it happened so recently.
The Romanovs of Russia. They ruled for just over 300 years, from 1613 to 1917. Under them, Russia exploded from a regional power into a vast empire spanning all the way to the Pacific.
Peter the Great dragged the country into a modern age, even building a brand new capital city from a swamp. And Catherine the Great, who wasn't even Russian by birth, expanded the entire empire and made her court equal of any in Europe.
But the same rot was setting in. The family clung to absolute power for long after the rest of Europe had started to share it, and the last Tsar, Nicholas II, carried a secret that was slowly poisoning the dynasty from within. His only son and heir, the Tsarovic Alexei, suffered from hemophilia, a disorder where the blood doesn't clot. The gene came from Queen Victoria of Britain, who had unknowingly passed it through her descendants into royal families across Europe. The Romanovs got it through Nicholas's wife, Alexandra.
The secret pulled the family toward a mysterious holy man named Rasputin, who claimed he could heal the boy. The scandal around him ate away at the little trust the public had left.
In 1917, revolution swept Nicholas off the throne, and in 1918, the entire family, the Tsar, his wife, and all of their children, were executed in a cellar. After 300 years, the Romanovs didn't just lose the crown, they were erased.
So that's 11 families, 11 of the most powerful dynasties the world has ever produced, and every single one of them fell.
Every single one, except one.
Dynasty number 12.
The Imperial House of Japan. While every other family on this list rose, peaked, and crashed, this one just kept going. It's the oldest monarchy on Earth. By tradition, its line goes all the way back to 660 BC, with solid historical evidence from around the 6th century AD.
This family was already ancient when the Romanovs were just getting started, and it's still on the throne today, the same bloodline unbroken, while every empire around it rose and disappeared.
So how did they pull off the one thing that nobody else on this list could? They did the opposite of everyone else. For most of their history, the emperor wasn't the one who actually held the power. That sat with military rulers called shoguns, while the emperor stayed a sacred, almost symbolic figure. When the Meiji Restoration in 1868 brought the emperor back to the center, the family adapted again, and today Emperor Naruhito still sits on the chrysanthemum throne.
And that's the whole secret. Everyone else on this list held onto absolute power as tightly as they could, and it destroyed them. The Imperial House of Japan let the power go and became a symbol instead of a target. You can't overthrow a throne that isn't really in charge.
So there it is, 12 families. Ancient Egypt, Persia, Rome, Tang China, the Mongols, the Ottomans, the Habsburgs, the Tudors, the Mongols, the Bourbons, the Romanovs, and then Japan.
Thousands of years, 4 continents, completely different languages and gods and customs. And yet, did you catch it? 11 times out of 12, the exact same story.
A founder seizes power through sheer force. A golden generation makes the family legendary, and then the rot sets in. Inbreeding, paranoia, fathers against sons against fathers, clinging to absolute power until the people or biology or their own relatives tear it all down.
The Pharaohs gambled it away, the Habsburgs married it away, the Bourbons spent it away, the Romanovs were dragged away. Different endings, same arc.
And here's the thing to sit with. The fingerprints are still everywhere. We call leaders Tsar and Kaiser because of one Roman family. Borders on the modern map right now were drawn by Ottoman and Habsburg ambition. The very idea of a single all-powerful ruler and the idea of overthrowing one was tested and proven by these families long before any of us were born.
Every one of them, at the height of their power, was absolutely certain they would be the exception, the one dynasty that would last forever.
11 of them were wrong. One of them wasn't. And now you know which.
That's every royal dynasty that shaped the world.